Man raises baby gorilla. 5 years after being separated, this happens. For those of you who don't know Damian Aspinall, he's a multi-millionaire philanthropist with a heart for saving wildlife, especially gorillas. Aspinall founded the Aspinall Foundation, and long before that, he was raising gorillas in his backyard. Well, it isn't exactly a backyard because of the whole mansion thing, but the point is that the guy has often made headlines with his charitable work for not only his own animal rescue setup, but various organizations across the world. Although Damian has saved over 100 gorillas since his young days, there were a few stories that truly stand out. In fact, he admits there is a special gorilla in Damian Aspinall's heart that will always have a unique place. His name was Quibi, a now massive gorilla who was rescued and practically raised at Damian's own wild animal park called Howlett's. Quibi's time at Howlett's was often filled with activities involving interaction with Damian, his wife, and other family members. Eventually, Quibi developed a fondness for Damian and other human companions who would treat this gorilla as part of the family. Apart from taking care of Quibi, Damian's foundation had another job. They all reintroduced the captive gorillas back into the wilds once the animals are fully grown and mature enough to handle themselves. During his stay at Howlett's, Damian and Quibi got close. However, it drove a wrench through Damian's heart to realize that Quibi had to be released back to the wild someday. It was more than likely that the man-gorilla duo won't be able to see one another anymore. Soon after Quibi was released, Damian decided to check back in on him. He asked his local African friends, but they reportedly said that the gorilla had developed an aggressive personality and that it wasn't easy to go near him. Despite the advice, Damian Aspinall decided to see Quibi, and that too after 5 years. Against all odds, he packed his bags and traveled back to the jungle where the gorilla was once released. Take a look at these powerful images yourself. The look in Quibi's eyes, especially in some of the photos, is quite remarkable. It's as if one moment he thinks he saw a stranger stepping into his territory, and then he realized that it was Damian, his old friend. The gorilla's facial expressions and feelings soon turn from aggressive to that of a baby or a dog who's ecstatic to see his owner. This proves that gorillas are not just animals. Damian admittedly believes that gorillas have a higher intelligence and empathy level as compared to other animals. Quibi was a lowland gorilla raised at the Howlett's Wild Animal Park under Damian Aspinall's supervision. The guy took care of Quibi for several years and then released him in the Gabon forests in West Africa. The noble act was part of the Wildlife Preservation Initiative. Also, Damian is not able to hold on to these gorillas forever. There comes a time and age when the animal has to be reintroduced into the jungle because that's where they belong. However, there's always a greater risk which threatens the gorilla's life in the jungle. Mortality rate is usually high because since these gorillas have been raised in a man-made sanctuary, they have no practical survival experience that comes naturally. Quibi somehow pulled through though and developed into a massive mature gorilla with his own territory. Not only was he much older and stronger than when Damian saw him last, but he was able to attack Damian if he felt vulnerable. Nevertheless, Damian discussed the plan with his family and they eventually agreed to visiting Quibi one last time. Damian was doubtful, in fact convinced that the animal wouldn't remember him after so many years. On top of the supposed reunion, Damian and his crew had to spend a long time finding Quibi in the dense forest. It wasn't an easy job. The team cruised up and down a forest river many times where Damian would emit a specific call that he used with Quibi when he was at Howlett's. Eventually, just when Damian was about to go back, Quibi showed up at the bank out of nowhere to meet Damian. He presumably heard that call and decided to show up to see Damian. Damian slowly moved towards Quibi and sat with him for a while. Eventually, he fed him some leaves with his mouth. The moments were captured to show the entire world an unbreakable bond between a man and a primate. When it was time to go back, Quibi held on to Damian in sort of a piggyback style. It was only when Quibi felt hungry that Damian saw an opportunity and slowly left. Somehow, Quibi followed Damian back along the shoreline. He spent all night on the other side of the riverbank to meet Damian again. When the crew woke up in the morning, they were startled to see Quibi standing on the opposite side of the river, waiting anxiously for Damian to show up. It was another emotional moment where Damian sailed across the river and embraced the gorilla once again. Who would have imagined such a powerful reunion? It goes without saying that the gorilla's bond with his former caregiver transcends all boundaries. It was heartening for Damian to part ways with Quibi, but he knew that whenever he'd be meeting the gorilla next, he'll be received with the same sense of love and affection.